Hey folks, this is Vince with Dan's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out The Last Command, a deck building game. This is a game that's coming to Kickstarter on June 11th, 2024. So what you're seeing here for the most part should be reflective of the finished product, but there might be a last minute update or two that might address some things. You know how Kickstarter campaigns typically work. Most prototypes are there, but sometimes there are stretch goals and, deluxe editions and all that jazz. In fact, if you want to learn more about the game itself directly from the developer's mouth. His name is Ty McDonald, great guy. I interviewed him just tonight, and we went through about 40 minutes worth of Q&A. So if you're interested, there's a link in the below description to both the interview and the Kickstarter page. The Kickstarter page should be available soon. Again, this is early May right now, so I should have a link for you soon. Anyway, the purpose of this video is to quickly show you how to play the game. I'm not going to go into grandiose detail. I'm not going to nitpick over every single card, but by the end of the video, you should have a good idea as to how the game is played and what you're in for should you decide to support this project. So, what is this game all about? Well, it is a 1v1. One player takes on the role of the Federation Remnant, and the other player takes on the role of the Sunder. Each player will get a battleship that they can control, and you're going to be duking it out, as it were, trying to get the other player's health to zero. If you've ever played a game like Star Realms, you'll be very familiar with this one, although this game does some unique things and adds its own twist to the game. There's dual deck building, for example, which we'll see very soon. Taking a step back in the rulebook here, this is a quick look at all the contents. There are 2 ship maps, 16 malfunction cards, which kind of like clog up your deck and do some nasty things. 10 trackers, 5 red trackers, 5 blue trackers, 2 sets of starting cards, 6 Sunder, 6 Federation Remnant, and then there's 3 crew and 3 system cards each. They're basically the starter cards for each faction. Then there are 51 system cards. That's one type of deck that you'll see in this game. System cards. There's 17 engineering, 17 comms, and 17 tactical. And then you've got the crew cards, which are the other deck that you'll be messing around with. There are 30 crew cards. There's 10 tactical, 10 comms, and 10 engineering crew. To set up the game, each player is going to get their very own mat. As you can see here, this belongs to the Sunder, one of the 2 factions that I was explaining earlier. The top row here, numbered 0 through 10 in the gold coin, that is your currency. Unlike other deck builders, your currency does persist from round to round, which is awesome. I love it when games do that, especially deck builders. There's nothing worse than playing, say, Star Realms or Hero Realms and then, queuing up 10, 15 gold for a turn and then not being able to spend it on anything because I don't like anything in the purchase row. Well, in this case, you can actually carry your money over from turn to turn, which is great. Then you've got your health. It ranges from 0 to 20. Obviously, you want to keep this as high as possible. A player's health will start on 20 and then work its way down from there as that player takes damage. And then you've got 3 unique systems. You've got engineering, comms, and tactical. You're going to set their energy on 1 each. There are tracker cubes for those as well. And they're going to be empty spaces here, but cards will be filling those spots as the game plays out. There's also space below a player board for crew. Crew is able to be played to that system in order to work with the actual cards in the above column. So crew that I assign to tactical will help the tactical cards that are played there, which is kind of awesome. So there's some decision making to be made, as you'll see in a little bit. Off to the right hand side, you'll see again there's 2 decks. As I said, this is a dual deck builder. You've got your system cards here and your crew cards here. Each player has 3 cards for their starting cards. I'm going to go ahead and flip one over so you can kind of see what the layout looks like. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in a bit. Okay, so you can tell it's a starter card because in the upper left hand corner there's the symbol of that particular faction. Normally there would be a cost there, but because this is a starter card and obviously it's free, it's just a symbol. In the upper right hand corner is the cost to actually play that card to its respective system. In this case, it costs 1 energy in order to play it to the comms system, which is what that symbol represents there. The immediate effect for playing this card, it's a one-off effect. You don't get to keep playing it from turn to turn. It's just a one-off effect for playing that card to that system. In this case, you earn 4 money, which is good. And then on the very bottom of the card, this is persistent effects that will carry over from round to round. You're going to observe these so as long as you have the appropriate crew symbol below that system. So if I had quick ship in the comms system. In order for this particular effect to be carried out at the end of the turn, you need a crew member with this particular symbol. In this case, Cadet Malkesh has that comms symbol in the upper right-hand corner. If I were to have this card underneath here, this symbol matches that symbol, and as a result, I can play that particular effect. Speaking of crew, this is a quick look at how they look. Again, it's very similar. Again, these are starter cards, so there's no cost to these. You play these cards to their respective systems, and then you gain a one-off bonus for playing it on the very bottom of the card. In this case, gain 2 energy to the system, or gain 3 money. These malfunction cards you're just going to put into a pile and put off to the side for right now. You will use them throughout the game, and they're all the same, so there's no sense in shuffling them. Just go ahead and just leave them as is, and you'll take them as you get them. Now, because this is a dual deck builder, there's going to be 2 different sets of purchase rows. There's going to be one for the crew and one for the systems. What you see in front of you is the crew purchase row. Now, Tabletop Simulator has them laid out like this. The crew purchase row is between the players, and then the system purchase row is off to the side. But again, if you get the game, you can put that any way you want to. You can lay them out, one to the left, one to the right. It's completely up to you. But I just want to leave it the way it is for purposes of Tabletop Simulator in case you want to dive into this yourself, assuming you've got Tabletop Simulator. So the crew row, there's 10 cards per system type. So you've got 10 crew that have this green icon in the upper right, which represents the engineering. Then you've got 10 crew cards that have that little blue symbol in the upper right, which represents comms. And then in the upper right-hand corner of this deck is that red gun symbol that represents the tactical system there. And then there are 10 cards in that. You're going to shuffle those individually, like separately, and then you're going to just have one face up like so. And then off to the right-hand side, this is the systems over here. You're going to shuffle each deck separately. There's going to be a red deck, a blue deck, and a green deck, and again, they correspond to their respective systems. Then you're going to deal 2 face up for each of the colors that you see here. So 2 red, 2 blue, 2 green. Lastly, you're going to deal yourself 3 cards, and this can come from either deck, and you can mix match it. So you can take 2 crew and 1 system, or 2 system and 1 crew. And what the developer tells me during my interview with him, you're able to draw one look at it, and then decide from there what deck you want to draw from next. That's super important that you do that. So the manual actually recommends that you draw 2 crew cards and 1 system card to form your starting hand. And as a quick note, when it comes to credits, the start player will start with 5 credits, while the second player will start with 6 credits. All right, so how does a turn typically look? Well, let's just assume it is my turn and I'm playing as the Sunder. There is a nice little handy-dandy reference card right here that outlines everything that you can do on your turn. You're going to play these in order, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first part is the card phase. Play all possible cards. You can even discard a card that you don't want to play in order to gain 2 credits. So if there's something that you just don't want to play or can't play, at least you get something for it, which is kind of cool. So let's just assume I've got these cards in my hand, and I'm looking to play all of them if I can. I'm going to go ahead and look. So if I play this one, it's going to do 1 damage to my enemy immediately. However, as a bonus toward the end of my turn, so as long as I've got that little red gun icon crew member symbol in my crew area, I'll be able to get something else out of it, which is kind of cool. It's a malfunction. And again, malfunctions clog up the enemy deck a bit. So I kind of want to play this. So I'm going to go ahead and think about playing it, but I realized I need 2 energy to play it. In the upper right-hand corner of that Siege Cannon card, it has 2. And I only have 1 energy here. That's what I started with. So I need to get more energy. So luckily I've got this Cadet Killian who can be assigned to that particular column. And it says here, gain 2 credits to this system, or 2 energy to the system, or deal 1 malfunction. So, I mean, it just makes sense to me. I play him first to this crew slot over here. You are limited to 3 crew members for each of those columns. So you can have a total of 9 crew members on the table at once. So it's kind of engine buildy that way. But don't worry, there are ways to cycle those out, as you'll see in a little bit. So now I'm going to choose to gain 2 energy in that system. So I'm now up to 3 energy. Now I'm going to spend that 2 that I just gained to play this Siege Cannon. So I'm going to spend 1, 2, and then I'm going to do 1 damage to the enemy hull. And on my opponent's board, I would then reduce his health from 20 to 19, which I'm not going to do for these example purposes. But it does a damage, which is great. I've also got this character over here, this Cadet Vector, who would go into the engineering crew slot. I'm going to go ahead and put him there. And it says here, I can choose to gain 2 energy to this system, or I can gain 1 healing or 1 health. So I'm already at max health. I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm just going to gain 2 energy here. And that ends the draw phase step of my turn. The second step to a player's turn is the market phase. This is where you're going to buy cards to add to your respective discard piles. That's what a typical deck builder typically does. It starts you off with a very low amount of cards as your starter deck, and then as you buy more cards from the purchase row, you can add them to your discard piles. Eventually, you'll run out of cards in your main deck, so you have to turn to your discard pile, refresh everything, and that becomes your new deck. Well, this game does that a little differently, but in terms of the market rows, I should say, you're going to buy as many cards as you want and add them to their respective discard piles. So in this case, I've got 5 credits to spend, and I'm looking to go, well, maybe I'll go heavy on red. I don't know. For example purposes, let's just say I'm going to spend 2 credits on this guy. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see the cost of the card. On the very bottom, you can see the ability whenever it's played. I'm going to go ahead and buy that for 2 credits, and that gets added to the crew discard down here. A new card automatically refreshes. Anytime that you buy from either of the 2 rows, a new card always replaces the card that was bought. So I could buy another crew if I want. I've got 3 credits remaining. Maybe I might want to look at buying a red system because I now just bought a red crew member. So maybe this Tri-Laser. It does 3 damage as soon as you play it, which is great. And then its special ability, move a malfunction from your discard to your opponent's discard, which is kind of nasty. You've also got the 0-point laser here, which immediately upon being played, 2 damage and then gain 2 energy to another system, which is great. And then there are bonus effects on the very bottom as well for that. So I might look at this 0-point laser and go ahead and buy that one and add it to this system discard pile. And that's going to spend all of my credits, unfortunately. But a new card is going to get replaced there, and that is the Chain Vulcan. As you can tell, these red tactical cards are very weapon heavy. The blue ones, again, are like communications heavy. This allows you to possibly draw cards, among other things. And then you've got these green ones. I haven't gone through all of them, but they usually deal with energy and repairs and that kind of thing. You would expect that out of something called engineering, right? So that is the market phase. Just buy cards with the credits you have. The third step to a player's turn is the system bonus phase. It says here on the reference card, collect crew bonuses, but the actual phase is system bonus phase. Anyway, so I cheated a little bit to bring some other cards into the mix to show you what this particular step looks like. I threw some cards all over the place here, and we'll go through them one by one. So in this phase, you're going to observe the bottom row of a system card. On the very bottom, there's like some symbols, a lot of iconography. Of course, there's the one-off effect above it, which is observed whenever you play the card to that particular space. But on the very bottom is the bonus area, and this is where those particular symbols start coming into play. So as long as you have the appropriate matching crew members there. Now, I kind of said earlier that you're going to put the green crew members in the green column under engineering and the blue crew under the blue. That's for the most part going to be the case, but as you'll see, some cards like this one here, the Ram Scoop Drive, actually gives you a bonus for having a blue crew member underneath that particular column. So you can actually have red crew members under blue, or blue under red, or green under red, whatever the case is, to fit the cards that you're going to be playing there. So in this particular step, this particular card is saying if there is a green crew member underneath this card in the crew area, then it says here repair 1 malfunction is what this is saying. And if you have a malfunction in your discard pile, you would go ahead and remove it at that time. That's what that means. Now, it's worth mentioning, and I asked the developer this, you cannot apply an effect twice if you've got 2 crew members of the same type. So for example, I've got Ensign Micah here, which has a green symbol, and I've also got Cadet Vector here, which also is a green symbol. Because I have 2 green symbols here, I cannot apply that repair malfunction twice. I can only apply it the one time. time. But there are other cards that might need 2 green symbols, in which case that would be beneficial to have these 2 sitting here. And if you've got another ability to look at, you can observe that as well. If you have a blue crew member underneath this column, it says to repair a malfunction. So this card is great. This system is great for repairing malfunctions. Now, before I get into the other cards, it's worth mentioning that whenever you purchase a card from the market row and put in the discard pile, you'll eventually get that card back as you play new systems to their respective areas. So if I get another green card at some point, I will be playing it over top of that RAM scoop drive, and I'll observe its immediate effect and also get a new bonus that's listed down there. So there may be some reason not to play new cards to a particular system because you've got a nice bonus going on. If you really have a lot of malfunctions, for example, and you're trying to get rid of them, this card is good to keep around for a couple of turns. So there's, if you don't like the current system that you have, you can replace it by putting a new one over top of it. But you can also keep that existing one around for quite a while to keep it around for its bonus effects for this particular phase. So there's a bit of strategy there. Moving on to the comms column here, you can actually see that there's 2 things. It's saying if you have a blue icon, you get to draw a card. Now, whenever you draw a card, you'll draw it at the end of your turn. That's the step 4, which I'll get into in a little bit. But you'll draw an extra card during step 4 of your turn. And then if you had a green symbol, repair 1 hull damage. I don't have a crew member down here with that green symbol on it, so I cannot observe the right side of that bonus, but I can at least draw a card at the end of my turn, which is nice. And then getting over to the tactical area here, if I have a red card, a red crew member under here, which I do, I get to pretty much just cause a malfunction on my opponent. So there's that. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot to do and a lot to think about as you're playing these cards. But I really like these bonuses just because you can chain some really cool things, but don't get too attached because you might get a new card that will eventually replace that existing system. But like I said, you'll be at some point wiping all of this out, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So don't get too attached to what I'm putting down, is what I'm saying. Lastly, in step 4 of a player's turn, you're just simply going to draw 3 cards. And again, these cards can come from any of these decks. So you can take 2 from system, 1 from crew. Again, if you had a bonus effect from one of these cards to draw an extra one, this is the time you would do it. So in this case, I would draw 4 cards instead of 3. And as a reminder, you can look at the card you're drawing and then decide which deck should I draw from next. It's also worth mentioning that, and this is a good time to get into this part of it, if you draw the last card from this deck, let's say that this is the last card in that deck, if this is now empty, okay, you will form a new draw pile, like as in a typical deck builder, by taking all of the cards from the discard and, putting it as the new deck. But in addition to that, you're going to take all of the cards that are also on the table for that respective area. So this is the system deck. You're going to take all of your system cards, all of them, shuffle them up, and that is your new draw deck. So you're actually going to wipe the slate clean whenever you draw cards and you don't have any more to draw. The same goes with the crew. If at some point you draw the last crew card, you are going to form a new deck by taking the cards from the discard pile, moving them over here, and any crew members that happen to be down here will also go into the new draw pile. And again, you'll be sort of wiping the slate clean, as it were, shuffling those up, and those are your new decks going forward. So there's also more strategy here in that, like, if you want to keep your systems around, but you see that your systems deck is getting low, you may want to draw a bunch of crew cards for a while to keep your existing systems in play for a couple of turns longer. So that's another big strategy, big think, you know what I mean? So that is the 4 steps to a player's turn. Play all possible cards, make market purchases, collect crew bonuses, and then finally draw 3 cards, possibly more if you have the appropriate bonuses. Let's talk a little bit about malfunctions. So whenever you give your opponent a malfunction through some kind of effect, it's going to go into one of their 2 discard piles. Eventually, that malfunction will become part of their main deck once they refresh it. So whenever you draw a malfunction, you're going to observe the effect and then draw a new card to replace it. That malfunction stays in the discard pile and will come back to your main deck eventually if you don't get rid of it. So as an example, let's just say it's my turn and I'm supposed to draw 3 cards because it's the end of my turn. So I'm going to draw 1 and 2 and then, oh, a malfunction. I totally didn't plan that. So every malfunction is the same. I did talk to the developer about this. He at some point may introduce some other types of malfunction cards that you can shuffle in along with this or replace these ones. That wasn't really determined yet, but this is the malfunction card that is currently available. In this case, you're going to take 1 damage, and then you're going to draw a new card to replace this card. So I'm still going to get my hand of 3 cards, but this is just an extra oomph, you know what I mean? So this is going to go into the discard pile. I'm going to take a damage, which from 20 to 19, sure. And then I'm going to draw another card to replace that. If it ends up being another malfunction, then, you know, you just follow that, repeat until you actually draw a card that isn't a malfunction. So yeah, malfunctions are simply that, and they are all the same, at least for now. So malfunctions, they don't seem that bad at first glance, but add enough of them to your players or your opponent's discard pile, and that will start adding up over time. And again, there are certain card effects that allow you to get rid of malfunctions, but they have to be, at least most of the time, in your discard pile in order to remove them. And that, for the most part, is the last command. Players will take turns back and forth, adding cards to their tableau, trying to get as powerful as they can to take out their opponent and reduce their life force to 0. Now, there are other ways to play. There are 2 gameplay variants listed on the back of the current rulebook, and I say current because I have to remind you, this is a Kickstarter project. More things may be added, who knows. But there's asymmetrical play. There's a separate set of starter cards that you can introduce. I'll show you that in a minute. There's also a Fog of War. Build your own starting hand. So if you don't like a particular set of starting cards, you can just draw cards from different sources. As long as the players agree, and this is coming from the developer's own mouth, as long as players agree, they can pretty much do whatever they want, which is really cool. So I love that there's, you know, quite a bit of freedom there. Here's a quick look at the asymmetrical cards. The cards on the right are the standard cards that a player starts with. The cards on the left are the asymmetrical, you know, new cards. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull them out here so you can kind of compare the two. So this is the asymmetrical on the left. As you can see, there are some differences in, you know, what its main ability is and its bonus ability on the bottom. Same with this card here, the Quantum Reactor. That is the asymmetrical card. Here's the actual card off to the right. As you can see, they are a little different. And then lastly, the Siege Cannon here. So, you know, if you're tired of playing with the standard cards that you would normally start with, the asymmetrical cards are a nice touch because it'll give you the, you know, it's the same experience, but, you know, albeit a slightly different setup. And there you have it, a quick look at The Last Command, a deck building game. Again, I didn't cover all of the rules found in the manual, but this should give you a good idea as to what you're in for should you decide to support this game. Speaking of which, as a reminder, the game is coming to Kickstarter on June 11th, 2024. There's going to be a link to that in the below description. There's also going to be a link to the interview/overview that I recorded with the developer. He did a great job at answering all of my questions. We even talked about stretch goals and other goodies that the Kickstarter campaign will have that the retail version may not have. So definitely check that out first if you're looking for some more information. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I will catch y'all next time. Take care.